Take it easy and solve the school lunch problem with SPAM. S-P-A-M.
こんにちは、タイガークローラジオ。You are listening now. Back J.
You are listening to Tiger Claw Radio. Number one in vintage computer and video game entertainment. And now your host, Critical Failure.
What's going on, everybody? This is Critical Failure. You are listening to Tiger Claw Radio. Check us out on thenextround.net. I'm really excited about this week because this week is all about being in the studio, right here in Comfortable Panzer Studios, talking about what's going on with games now. So I'm leaving the van. All right, I got a little van casting for you at the end, but this is all about you and me here. Okay, so get yourself a cup of coffee. Get me loaded up on your iDevice, and let's go to work. Coming up, I got a little bit about Friday the 13th, which is my favorite game right now, but I didn't dive too much into it because that's kind of the well, how should I say this? That's really entering the realm of, oh wow, this game is awesome. How do I take something I can say in 30 seconds and make it stretch for an hour? So didn't go too deep down that rabbit hole, but I also had some issues with Windows 7, and the big thing, we're returning to the internet for more classic failbag action. In other news, there was a new release over on Pterodactyl Studios. Pterodactyl Squad, jeez Louise. There is a brand new release over there from none other than Hide Your Tigers. Hide Your Tigers put out an EP maybe like 3 or 4 months ago that I grabbed and played a little bit on the show when I first got it. So it's cool to see them show up on Pterodactyl Squad. This is a bit more, how should I say it? The last Hide Your Tigers album I listened to was very hyperdrive. It was very super fast. It was very they needed to just slow it down a little bit, and that's what I think they did with this album. It's called Run From Reality. That's the name of the EP. It's got 6 tracks, and it's very much it's very much roots LSDJ kind of music. The blurb on Pterodactyl Squad describes it as 4 to the floor pumping LSDJ party starters, which is kind of a sounds like a non-description to me, but it's stripped down with not a lot of gimmick to it, which I like. Even the cover they made looks pretty bare. So you're listening to Tiger Claw Radio, and here is Hide Your Tigers. Yeah, let me get a sip of coffee. Oh, boy. Okay. It's early in the morning. We're comfy in the studios. This is something I did last week that I'd like to do again. I want to put my finger to the pulse of the community. I really want to get out there and see what other people are saying. So this was a gag that I did like the first couple episodes of Tiger Claw Radio back in 2010 or 2009 or whenever we got this off the ground. I would go to message forums, which was Game FAQs at the time, although I haven't been to Game FAQs in a while, and I would read comments that interested me, and I'd read them as if they were letters sent into the show. Henceforth, the fail bag. So I'm going to do something similar to that again. I'm going to go out and read some comments, some questions that I think are interesting, as if they were sent into the show. These are all real things that actual human beings have typed out, mind you. So let's go out into the world and see what's being said. The first question comes from Anon, and he writes, I want to get into shmups. Where can I start? That's a good question. Shmups, I think, because I remember feeling just like that. I remember looking at I guess I was saying, not looking at shmups per se, but looking at people who really knew what they were talking about when it came to shmups and thinking, wow, there's some truly beautiful games. I mean, there really are. I can see that a lot of people took to answering this question by pointing out shmups that were maybe easier to play. That wasn't the route that I took. For starters, Steam, as it turns out, has become a really good platform for shmups. In the olden days, if you want to go back to, if you want to get them, legit copies of shmups on consoles, I couldn't tell you because I don't have very many myself. But I think the game that really started it for me was Ikaruga. That was the first hardcore shmup that I remember picking up. Ikaruga is you're not going to get far. You're going to play it over and over again. But it was a with the whole polarity mechanic. It was kind of it showed me that shmups had a little bit more complexity to offer than just say avoid the dots and shoot dots of your own. Raiden, it has been a go-to game for me for quite a while now. I mean, right here on TCR, we've been doing a high score showdown for Raiden 3, which, by the way, this past week, Alex Swingle has messaged me a couple of times over Steam. He is making the number one spot even higher. I think he's up to 5 million now. But I'll have to collect some exact numbers so we can publish the scoreboard. That way you guys at home can play too. Raiden 3 went down to $1.50, by the way, during the Thanksgiving sales. And that's a brilliant game. Even if the port is, maybe has some issues, Raiden 3 is a great game. Raiden 4, that was only $2.50. Yeah. I mean, there's some great shmups on Steam if you're willing to really throw down. Dodonpachi is a favorite of mine. That's got a lot of different game modes. It's kind of expensive though. A regular price is about $30. But that one for me is special. When I went to MagFest last couple of years, I got to play a couple of different versions of Dodonpachi, and they blew my mind. Steam, given as much as I've played, if I were to say pick out a beginner's accessible shmup, I would say Danmaku 2 or Danmaku Unlimited 2 is very accessible. It's a bullet hell shmup, but there's level advancement, so you can play it, get your butt kicked, and still feel like you're winning a little bit, making it accessible, easy to play. Judgment Silver Sword is also a great game. Doesn't look quite as impressive as Danmaku Unlimited 2, but I've had a lot of fun with it. It doesn't cost a lot, it looks great, and it's a lot of fun. So that's just a couple. I'm looking at my shmups category in Steam, and I'm up to 47 games, 47 shmups. Also, you can't go wrong with the old school MS-DOS shmups. There weren't many of them. Raptor Call of the Shadows, Star Gunner, Tyrian 2000. Tyrian 2000 is a good game. I didn't get into that until I was older, but that's a really good game. Be willing to take a chance. There's a lot of really good shmups out there, and not too many bad ones. I mean, at least on Steam. There are a few bad ones. Okay, maybe that's not fair. Wow. I picked up Raiden Legacy in the Thanksgiving sales after against the advice of a lot of the Steam reviews. There were a lot of negative Steam reviews for Raiden Legacy, and I loved it. I thought it was a great game. I was talking to Swingle about this. I told him the same thing, and what I said was, the interface was legit done by a special needs student, but the games are preserved perfectly. So that was a good buy. That ran me $5 on sale, and I don't regret buying it for a second. So thanks for the question, Anon. I'm looking at the replies he got. There's some good stuff here. Thunder Force. Play Magical Chase for the TurboGrafx 16. Yeah, lots of good stuff here. Play Konami shmups first. All right, just to see a few of the replies. All right, let's see what else we got. So Anon writes in, let's talk about light gun games. What's your favorite gun or your favorite game? Any hidden gems? What's the best way to play old light gun games on modern machines? That's a good question, because light gun games seem to have fallen out of vogue. So yeah, let's talk about the best way to play a light gun game. Light gun games, as far as I know, you really need to have a CRT. I have an old tube TV. I've got a 17-inch tube television that I bought with my wife at a Best Buy for $100, probably like 12 years ago. We didn't have a car then, so I carried it in my hands on the bus, and I had to walk from the bus stop maybe 4-5 blocks to my house, carrying this brand new TV. So this TV is like a personal artifact to me. Technology in my household has grown far and above this TV, but I've always held on to it. So we had some kind of CRT in the house for retro gaming purposes, and also because of its place in my family. But because I've held on to it, it has become the go-to machine to use a light gun game. Because you can't play a light gun game on like a flat screen TV. The frame rate's not fast enough. So that's, as far as I know, the only way to do it. Old CRT. As far as favorite games, well, I've got the NES light gun. That's the only functioning light gun I've got. And I don't have any rare games either. Duck Hunt, is still a great game. I think Duck Hunt never got old to me, because the chances I have to play it are like I've only played it once every 5 years or so since I first played it. Hogan's Alley, I think, is probably my favorite light gun game. I never repurchased a copy of Hogan's Alley since I started collecting for the Nintendo again. And I have a functioning light gun, and I have a CRT, and I have a Nintendo that's hooked up to that CRT right now. So this topic is making me think I should get Hogan's Alley. Although, to be fair, that's a thought that's creeped up more than a couple times in the past 5 years. That's probably my favorite. I also... this might not make me any friends, but I always thought that Bazooka for the Super Nintendo was garbage. I think that thing is a poo log. There was Super Scope 6, the pack-in Super Scope Super Nintendo game. Had like several mini games on it. And I remember watching my friend play like this Tetris game where the Tetris pieces would fall, and you'd have to use the Super Scope to blow away certain parts of the Tetris blocks to make them fit. And I remember thinking that was the dumbest way to spend your time. I don't know. You can look that up on YouTube if you want. Probably the worst music I've ever heard in a video game. You would think the worst video game music would be like an Atari 5200 game or something like that. No. This was the worst. It was the worst because it was bad. It was bad music on a system that had like some of the best music hardware of any retro system. It was bad. Now, let's go to the Sega Master System. Sega Master System had a light gun. I don't own one, but it's not prohibitively expensive, at least from what I found searching around. And as I've mentioned on a lot of the podcasts in weeks past, one of my favorite games for the Sega Master System is Hang On. Right? The motorcycle racing game. Hang On, my copy, which I have complete in box, but it's up on the shelf. It's got something in front of it. I can't see it. That's a double cart, kind of like Mario Duck Hunt kind of deal. What is the game it's packed in with? Anyway, the game it's packed in with is a light gun game. I want to say it's called Safari Hunt, but I could be wrong. I'm looking over the shelf and I have a stick of deodorant sitting like right in front of it, so I can't see what's on the label. But I wouldn't mind getting the Sega Master System light gun. The only problem with that is my Master System is hooked up to a flat screen like TV that won't handle light guns. You know, I did some searching a year ago or so, and they're not cheap, but there are non-branded light guns that you can get for your computer for like a couple $100. And I thought it would be amazing if you could buy a light gun for your computer and then just like play light gun games on Steam. Right? If you could like design a light gun game in Game Maker or something, that would be amazing. That would be so cool. To open the computer, like the computer's ability to be like a free and open platform, to open that into the light gun territory, I think would be amazing. Because monitors are so big now, right? The only problem is that frame rate. I don't know. I think it'd be cool. Let's see some of the replies that he got. Anand says, Sega Master System is my goat. No flicker like NES. Lots of good games. Rescue Mission and Missile Intercept 3D and Shooting Gallery are my favorites. 3D glasses light gun games are even great in short time increments. Next reply. Favorite gun, Sega Master System gun. Favorite game, House of the Dead. Hidden gems, Virtua Cop, I guess. There's no way to play old light gun games on modern machines. You're better off with the original hardware and a CRT TV. I completely agree. It looks like the Master System gun is really popular in this discussion. Yeah. The Master System light phaser is GOAT of all time. Sturdy, cool-looking, sci-fi and stuff. Outperformed the competition. Honestly, it's better looking than a lot of arcade guns. Rare for home hardware of this era to beat them. Favorite game is Wanted on the same system. Actually, come to think of it, I've been jonesing to play light gun games again. Does anyone have recent experience with the Sega light phaser guns? Have they started breaking down in mass or something? I don't want to get a Wanted cart and spend $200 on light guns. Dude, a light phaser for the Master System isn't $200. I'm gonna look it up right now. Sega light phaser. You know, I never used it, but you know what looks awesome? The light gun that comes with, I think it's Virtual Cop for like the Sega CD or Sega Saturn. That blue Magnum revolver. That is a gorgeous light gun. Sega Master System light phaser. Original, official in-box, vintage pre-owned. That's a gorgeous gun with the box. $30. That is not bad at all. Man, I want one of these now. Assault City. for the Sega Master System, pre-owned for $160. Yeah, that's where the money comes in. Not in the gun, but the games. Shooting Gallery for the Sega Master System. Master System cartridge, $34.99, $3 shipping. That's a lot, but it's not crazy. Wanted from the UK, so I wouldn't be able to play it. $20. Rambo 3 shooting for the Master System. Yeah, there's some cool stuff here. $30. Look, here's one without the box. $18.50. Yeah, $20. Get yourself a Sega Light Phaser. Unless the person who wrote that comment is from overseas and they have a harder time getting them, I could see that being an issue. But I've already got one game. I mean, I've got Safari Hunt or whatever that game is called. $20. Play that. It'd be cool, right? I was really one of the objectives that I had was to explore the Sega Master System, not necessarily every corner, not necessarily spend a ton of money or buy its greatest games, but just explore it a little bit. Get a few games here, a few games there, right? When Sendu sold it to me, he sold me probably like 4 or 5 games, and I wanted to make sure that those weren't the only games I played. I wanted to fan out just a little bit. I think the light phaser would be really awesome, an awesome thing to experience. All right, that is a great that Anon. Thanks for writing in. I know you're a big fan of TCR. I'm glad to have you as a fan. Let's see what else Anon has to say. Ooh, this is a good one. This email is from Anon. He writes, the Nintendo 64 RAM expansion. Why was this even a thing? Why didn't they just build 4 megabytes of RAM into the console? Wow. Well, I got to tell you, Anon, I don't know the answer to that. I know that that was not the only console that tried to expand in this way. That was actually more common than you might think. Right? This is one of those questions that I can tell separates the people who were there from the people who are buying them after the fact. Now, if you're a young guy and you love retro gaming, believe me, I've got nothing against you. Go nuts. But there was a lot of this kind of thing in those days. Now, the most egregious example, well, not egregious, but the biggest example of this kind of expansion that comes to mind is the Sega Genesis. I mean, there were two completely separate consoles that just plugged into it. You think, from a design perspective, can you think of how outrageous the 32X sounds today? Well, we got this console, and you put it in another console, and then it makes the console play. That's crazy. Right, I don't know a whole lot about the Sega Saturn, but the Sega Saturn had that slot in the back, right, where the Action Max goes, and the net card, the net play. I don't know what it was called, but Cherry Terrifying could tell you. That card that you put in the back so you could play over a landline, right? It used dial-up landline network play, and because it was a direct connect, it still works today. Netlink, the Sega Netlink. That is a gorgeous piece of hardware. They had to re-release certain games to make it work. But I saw a video of Jerry Terrifying playing Duke Nukem 3D over the Sega Saturn Netlink. And that was awesome. That was really awesome. When I had a Sega Saturn, I had Virtual On Cyber Troopers Netlink edition. I never got to play it over the Netlink because I didn't have one of those cards. My Saturn didn't last long either. But the fact that thing still works today, incredible. I want to see. This is something I'd like to look up today. I just want to see some people playing it. I don't feel the need to track down the hardware. Just anybody who's got an operating Netlink, I want to see your video of it up and running. So yeah, 4 megabytes of RAM that you can just slap into the 64. I don't know. It doesn't really sound that crazy to me for the time. Right? I'm looking at the other comments that this email has received. And one comment reads, Nintendo tried to make the 64 really modular and expandable. It was an okay idea on paper, but the idea was to offer the initial console cheap, but to be upgradable as the system... Oh, is this written wrong or am I reading it wrong? Offer the console cheap, but be able to upgrade the system with add-ons over the years. Yeah, I'm just reading it really badly. I guess Nintendo didn't learn from Sega's mistakes. I'm telling you, that was what they thought was the wave of the future. What are you gonna do? I guess that at that time electronics were still being built to last. The Nintendo 64 was a system that was still built on these bulletproof cartridges, right? These beefy hunks of plastic that would hide a circuit board with no moving parts. Those things would last, right? Not like today. No. Not like the Xbox 360, where you had people saying, I've had 4 of these and they've all broken. Why are you still buying them? I don't know. Is that it? Do I have any more? Let's see. We've got our finger on the pulse of the community here on Tiger Claw Radio. Here's another good email in the fail bag. This is from Anon. Anon writes, TCR, what do you think of relabeling your old games? I'm not talking about reproduction cartridges either. Well, Anon, that is a very insightful question. Let me tell you what I think. I think there's... I think if I have a game with its original label on it, I'm not going to take the label off and put another label on in its place. But there are things that happen to certain labels on certain games where the label will come off or get just ripped to shreds and you can't see it anymore. In cases like those, relabeling is a great tool to be able to do. All right. One example that I can think of in my own collection. Years ago, all right, over on YouTube, there's a YouTuber named Crow. Crow, lots of exclamation marks. Named after MST3K, Crow. He does a lot of pinball videos, heck of a guy. Crow sold me some Atari 2600 games, like 4 or 5 games, I don't know. Among them was a copy of Blackjack. Now, Atari 2600 had these end labels, and some old Atari 2600 games, the labels just come off. I've had it happen to other games in my collection. Well, this end label for Blackjack had come off, and he printed one off the computer. He put it on in its place, cut it out, used some glue or paste or something, and got it on there. You can look at this thing, you can tell the label is not genuine. Here is an example of relabeling a game cartridge. I'm glad he did it. I think it looks great. It doesn't matter that it's not genuine. It's a label on a game that would not otherwise have a label. Now, if you've got a genuine label and you're scraping that thing off so you can put on some sort of alternate label, I'm not a fan of that. I'll tell you a story. Years ago, like maybe 15 years ago. Look, I never did the yard sailing thing, but what I did do was pawn shops. All right. Down in like the town square where I lived, there was a 2 or 3 block radius that had like 4 pawn shops. I would walk into town, which took about 40 minutes. And then there was this square of pawn shops, and then like 5 minutes down the road was the mall, where the legit game stores were. I did the pawn shops a lot. Right? To the point where I went back to one of those pawn shops like maybe 3 years ago. And the guy who ran it was like, "Hey, how you doing? I seen you coming in here when you were a tiny little kid." And that was kind of a trip, because I never really talked to this guy. He was just like a pawn shop owner who was getting old and saw that I was, a grown-up. That was kind of a nice moment. But anyway, I'm digressing. That same guy in that same pawn shop, once upon a time, I can't remember what system I was looking for. I want to say a PlayStation, because it was a CD-based game. It was either PlayStation or like, could have been Dreamcast, because I seem to remember looking at a copy of House of the Dead, and I don't remember what system. I want to say Dreamcast, because I don't think House of the Dead. That was distinctly a Sega game, so it had to have been like Dreamcast. And it was like, the cover was something that the previous owner just made, but badly. It was like a picture of like a graveyard, and he had like taken a pair of scissors and cut a picture of a zombie out and then taped it to the picture of the graveyard, and that was the cover. And I remember asking the pawn shop owner, "What is this? What are we looking at here?" And he was like, "Well, some people just customize things. It's just like when you own a guitar and you put stickers on it." Now, at the time, I wouldn't say this to the pawn shop owner, but I was thinking, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. You know what you got here? You got a lump of crap. That's what this game is. So that's what I think of when I see, we'll scrape the label off, we'll put on this other label that I printed off my computer. It makes me think of that old zombie game, Under the Glass at the pawn shop. So many years ago. All right. I think that might be it. All right, I got one more email from Anon. Anon writes in, "Dear Tiger Claw Radio, what are some games you would admit that you will never beat? For me, it's Battletoads." Anon, that is a very insightful question. Thank you for your email. I treasure them. Well, I assume you're talking about classic games. But when I got into ROMs, one of the things I did was go after games like that, using save states. Because there were plenty of games that I wanted to beat that I thought, like, that I was kind of done trying with. But I thought, you know what? We'll save scum. Why? Because why not? One for me would be Bayou Billy, and I see that in the other replies to this guy's email. Bayou Billy is a great example. World-class example of games being harder when they get to the States to overcome the rental market. Mad City on the Famicom, they made it harder, and we got Bayou Billy. So I save scummed my way all the way through Bayou Billy to the very, very end. And I can tell you, in the old days, I got as far as the highway stage, legit, on the NES. By the end of that game, it gets really, like, unfun, unfair. So that's one I'm never going to beat legit. I think last week I talked about beating Bump and Jump. I'm never going to beat that legit, right? I'm never going to beat the original Castlevania. I don't have the patience for it anymore. As I'm older and I have less time to play games, it's harder for me to accept getting stuck somewhere. I mean, it was hard when I was young, but it's harder. It's even harder now. The other people chiming in on this question have created like a who's who of terrible games that I can never get through. Not terrible games, that's not fair. Games I can't get through. Punch-Out. I'm never going to beat Punch-Out. Or Super Punch-Out, for that matter. I got a lot further in Super Punch-Out. I'll still never beat it. I'll never beat any game with the words ghosts, ghouls, or goblins in any combination in the title. I'm not going to be able to do it. I'll play them. I still love them. They're great games. But as far as I'm concerned, winning the game is just off the table. I'll probably never beat a Wizardry game. Those are my favorite games. Sometimes when I set out to play a game, getting to the end credits is not necessarily the goal. It's just to have a good time. Or maybe getting further than you got last time is enough. Because it was when I was a kid. As long as I got to a place I hadn't seen before, I was doing all right. Let's return to the Pterodactyl Squad release of Hide Your Tigers. I'm going to play another track. You're listening to Tiger Claw Radio. I don't like to harp on this too much, but I do like to take just a minute or two every week to set aside to thank the patrons. Remember, this is a Patreon-sponsored show, so these are the guys who have given of their resources just a little bit to help keep things running every week. And the fact that there are people contributing has had an unexpectedly large impact in my life and in the way I do things. So I owe these guys a debt of gratitude. Two little things I can do is, number one, as soon as I get the show finished, Monday is the release day for everybody, but these guys, they get it a little early. It usually tends to be Friday night. Sometimes it runs into Saturday, depending how long it takes me to finish up. So that's one thing I can give. Another thing is just reading off the Hall of Distinguished Gentlemen. They are Hemrock, James, Sendu, Tecmo Balls, Durabka, Six Health of Fury, and the Cartridge Brothers. Thank you guys very much for giving of your resources to help TCR stay online. And I truly hope that you guys feel like you're getting your money's worth, because I'm doing the best I can to honor your contributions. I woke up this morning and started poking around on my computer. I usually give myself about an hour to just chill before I have to start getting ready for work. I got this message on Windows saying this copy of Windows has failed its authentication check. You got to activate this copy now. Now, this is I'm running Windows 7. I've been running this for like a year now. I bought the key. I bought an OST key. I got it unlocked. Not an OST key. That's the wrong letters. OPM key. Nope. That's the wrong letters too. I bought a key for like $20. And it authenticated just fine. I don't know what I'm going to do, but that's a heck of a thing to wake up to. Come on, Windows. You know, I've just been thinking recently about how much I loved Linux, and then I just somehow, when I started dual booting, I floated over to Windows, and I just kind of stayed there, and now I'm more of a Windows user again, rather than a Linux person. Do you guys remember that? When it's like every week, when I came on TCR, it would be like the new thing that's going on with Linux. The new games that were being released for Linux. And you could tell it was like, as a Steam user, I was like 5 years behind everyone else or more. Well, once I set up the dual boot, I just kept going into Windows. I just want to play the games. That's what it's all about. I'm looking at the games on my desktop that I'm enjoying playing right now. Street Fighter 5, you know, Friday the 13th. These are the games that I like. I don't think either of those are available on Linux. So that's the trade-off. So instead I have to deal with this. One day you turn it on and it's like, this copy of Windows isn't genuine. Sorry. So I don't know what I'm going to do. I have a printout somewhere that's got my key. Maybe I can retype my key and that'll get me in. I don't know if I'm willing to pay $20 for another key for Windows. I don't know. I really have to do some thinking. I don't know what it does. Maybe it... I don't know. It's a headache, though. It's not something I needed before I leave and put in, you know, a full day of work at the office. This is the time where I get up. When I was playing a lot of Morrowind, this was my Morrowind time. And I'd go to the office thinking about Morrowind, which was great. It was a great way to, like, you know, chip loose some of the stress that was hanging off of me from the previous day. Play a little Morrowind. And now I have the game of let's try and reactivate the copy of Windows that I bought. This is a minor annoyance, but this is one of the reasons I don't want to go to Windows 10. Even after, you know, I initially didn't want to go to Windows 10 because of the campaign to get people to upgrade. I thought was like the most egregious, invasive, anti-consumer thing I'd ever seen. Back when, you know, hey, upgrade to Windows. We upgraded you to Windows 10 even though you didn't want it. This is happening. Blah. That was what got me to not want Windows 10. Now I'm like a Windows 7 key is like $20. You know, I would be spitting and cussing if this was a Windows 10 key that was doing this to me. I would be cussing up a storm. It's all right. I'm making a big deal out of it now because it just kind of happened to me just like a few minutes ago. It's not really a big deal. I'm pretty sure I remember reading Windows 7 when it's not authenticated. You get a message in the lower right hand corner that says this copy of Windows is not genuine, which I have now, and it will consistently strip out your wallpaper. But that's it. I think apart from that, you can just use it like regular. Which leads me to believe I wasted my money trying to get it a key and get this thing authenticated in the first place. But that's besides the point. All right, boys and girls. Now I started doing the Vancast to find time somehow to fill out TCR. So Vancast was born from a need to have recording time. And now that I've done, I've got an hour in the studio. At this point, I still want to do the Vancast, but the reason is different now. And the reason now is because on Monday morning when I drive to work, and also when I drive home that day, recording the Vancast helps old CF an awful lot. It helps me deal with returning from the weekend into my work routine. So let's go back to the Vancast. We're going to Tarantino it back to Monday. You're listening to Tiger Claw Radio. Oh boy, Monday morning after Thanksgiving weekend. The long weekend. And I'm dragging today, boys and girls. I'm dragging today probably harder than I have been in quite some time. I usually do okay in the mornings. I wouldn't call myself a morning person, but I get up with plenty of time. I take care of business and I get on the road. This morning, man, I'm not late, but man, I want to go back to bed. Got to hang out on Skype with Hemrock last night, which was a lot of fun. The Thanksgiving sales on the Steams are coming to a close. I think they stick around for today because it's Cyber Monday, and then they go. So while they were here, I picked up a couple of things. I couldn't recount the list for you, and I don't think that would be interesting to hear, but among them was Friday the 13th. That went up half price, and I picked that up, and I gotta say, in the short time I've had that, because it's probably been like maybe 2 or 3 days I've owned this game now, and I've already put 7 hours into it, which for me, 7 hours in a game across a couple of days, I mean, if you just have a job, and you're not married or anything like that, is nothing. It really is. But with the amount of time that I do not have for gaming these days, that much time in a game in that short a time is a lot. It's a lot. I had one really good long night of Friday the 13th, and it was awesome. It's a good game. I like it. Hide and seek with internet people. I would say there were complaints about Jason being overpowered. I didn't feel that was the case. He's powerful, but he has to be. I mean, he's got to be powerful enough that as a player you want to avoid him. As a player you want to run from him. So that's what they've done. So yes, Jason is really powerful, but I don't know, it makes sense to me. It feels pretty balanced. You're going to lose a lot. Jason's going to get you. When you play as Jason, you're probably going to get 1 or 2 of the counselors. Okay, so let me put it to you this way. The first 2 matches I played of Friday the 13th, we're talking just installed the game, just fired it up for the first time. The very first match, I was selected as Jason. Now, I knew right away this was bad news. I didn't know what Jason could do, apart from what I saw in Let's Plays. I didn't know what buttons to press. I still managed to get a kill on that first round as Jason. Second round I played, I was also Jason. My only problem, I think at this point, was that those rounds were about 30 minutes apiece. So I was like, all right, it's time for me to play as a counselor and start learning the game. Okay. So I think at that point I took a break. Not like a long break, but, got some food or whatever, a couple hours. And then I wasn't Jason again for like a long time. So that's Friday the 13th. I wish more of my friends had it, because another complaint is that the community is not great. There's a lot of people who play it who either don't speak English or don't use the microphone, which, is a bummer. You get into a match with 8 people, and maybe 2 or 3 will use the microphone and be like people you can talk to, which is a bummer. I've had no problems finding people to play with, but I have never jumped into a full game filled with people who will talk. That hasn't happened yet. I think consequently, a lot of people are just randomly going to add you. You'll play with a couple of people who speak English, and one of those people are going to be like, all right, I'm going to add the people who are speaking English who are using microphones. I'm just going to add them. That happened a lot in Counter-Strike Global Offensive, but I think it's happened more in this game. So that's Friday the 13th. What else have I played? Not a whole lot. I sat down with Final Fantasy X2 again this morning, but something was wrong with my save file. I was only like, 20 minutes into the game, like past the first cutscene, past the first, there's a couple of canned mini battles at the beginning, past all that, the first real save spot, and my memory card didn't boot up. So I was like, whatever, I'll do it again. So I did the first 20 minutes a second time of Final Fantasy X2. Got to the save point, and I realized the memory card wasn't reading, and that was the problem. It's I wiggled the memory card in the spot, in the memory card slot, and then it read. And then I was like, oh, my save file was there after all. So I played the first part of this game a second time for no real reason. So that was a bummer. But, is what it is. Not the worst thing in the world. I think that's about it. I would say that's it. I played some, and I talked about this with Hamrock, but I'll just go ahead and throw it out there. This also happened. I was playing with my reproduction cartridges for the Genesis, which I like a lot. And I sat down and played the Wily Wars for about an hour. And I have some gripes with the Wily Wars on the Sega Genesis. They're not, they changed those games. It's not a collection of Mega Man 1, 2, and 3. It's its own new game based off of Mega Man 1, 2, and 3. That's what I'd say about the Wily Wars. But that's not the point. The point is this. That's a game where you can save, right? You got save files, save your progress. You can go and fight the robot masters one at a time. And I did so. I put about an hour into it. I played Mega Man 2. I was learning how the game was different, because it is different from the old games. The Buster is not as strong in this game as it is in the old games. However, you can replay levels over and over again. So it's a trade-off. So your normal shot, not as good, but you can play Flash Man over and over again in Mega Man 2, get as many E-tanks as you want. That's what I was doing. And I put an hour into it. I knocked out a few robot masters, tried to save the game. And what I do when I have a new cartridge that's supposed to hold a save, the very first time I save the game, turn the cartridge off, turn it right back on. Let's just see if it held. See if it held the data. And it did not, which was disconcerting. So my save data did not hold. So then it hit me. The reproduction cards probably don't hold saves. So the first thing I did was I pulled that cartridge out, put in a Phantasy Star 4. I haven't played much of Phantasy Star 4. I haven't tried to play through it. I just turned it on and tested it when I got it, and it worked. So I left it alone. I put that in and started working my way towards the first place where you can save. Saved my file, restarted the machine, nothing. What a disappointment. So very disappointed that these games don't hold save files. I'm glad I figured it out before I spent too much money on games that really need them, like Shining Force 1 and 2 are games I would not mind owning, but I'm certainly not going to buy them if they don't hold saves. That's not to say all my repros are garbage, because there were only a couple that held saves. Wily Wars holds a save, and I believe Metal Sonic holds a save as well, although I haven't spent much time with that game. So, I don't know. Both of those are going to have problems, I would imagine. My favorite of the repros that I've bought are Splatterhouse 2, which there's no save functionality that uses passwords. So my Splatterhouse 2 is made in the shade. That is an awesome game. And I play Mega Bomberman, which, I play that for the battle mode. So I play battle mode with my kids. There's no saves involved there. So those are great. But I don't know. I guess as they say, you get what you pay for. I'm kind of bummed though, because I really felt like I had a great solution to high cost gaming. I guess in some ways I still do. I still have Splatterhouse. I'll be picking up Splatterhouse 3 eventually. That doesn't save, does it? I don't think so. I'll have to do a bit of research. Alright. We are 10 minutes in? I think I'm going to call it a Vaincast. Shoot us back to the comfortable Panzer Studios. Thanks for checking in on this freezing cold Monday morning as I drag myself to work. I'll see you back in the studio.
Hang on. Are we up and running now? I think that's working. I started talking into it, but I realized the power source for the microphone was not on. We are back in the comfortable Panzer Studios, and production has run into Saturday, which happens sometimes. So, I wanted to go over the fail bag, the tried and true fail bag, the real fail bag. This is the part of the show where we enjoy the fact that it's a small operation. You guys can interact with me. I love to read your comments, and we can get kind of a back and forth going. Now, it's been said there have been plenty of episodes in the past where this portion saves the show, and I think it's true because there's value in the back and forth. My apologies. Once in a while, the comments tend to get scrambled because I tend to accept them from wherever. The biggest place being YouTube. Also, you can head over to thenextround.net and leave a comment there, or on Tiger Claw TV, wherever the podcast is posted. Please feel free to write a little something, and I'll do the best I can to respond. Just before I head into the fail bag, though, I got an email last night that VidMe is closing down, which is, I can't say it's a surprise, but it sucks, man, because I liked VidMe. They really had something good going. And it was, the views were not as good as you would get on YouTube, but I found it easy to find stuff I couldn't find on YouTube, right? And also, you could put stuff up there, and if you got hit on YouTube for some sort of copyright issue, you wouldn't necessarily get hit on VidMe. They didn't have the same automatic review procedures YouTube had. So it really sucks to let VidMe go. And it says they're going to be shutting down on December 15th. I don't see any... Yeah, they don't really say why. It says, after careful consideration, the VidMe team has arrived at the difficult decision to suspend VidMe site and apps effective December 15th at noon Pacific time. We'll use this blog post to explain what this means for users and how we got here and what's next for us. It says if you have money floating, then that they're going to pay it off. But what I don't see here, I don't see any particular reason. I have to feel that, like I'm looking at this, and what it tells me is that Google has crushed VidMe. They crushed them. That's what I think of when I look at this. No new signups and uploads, new signups and uploads will be disabled effective today. Jeez. That means this podcast is not going to be available on VidMe. Wow. All right, well, special thanks to the VidMe team for keeping their site up and running. I certainly had fun with it while it was around. It got Tiger Claw Radio to a few new sets of ears, not only on my own page, but also on the Next Round page. We did okay over there. So thanks, guys, for running your website, and I wish all the VidMe employees the best of luck in their careers. Let's head over to YouTube now and read the comments from the last episode of TCR. Now, the last episode was the TISM Challenge, which was something I threw out there in honor of our good friend Alex Swingle, who often likes to go back and forth with us in the comments. Let's start with Dumaze. Dumaze writes, the only difference I can recall about Genesis EverDrives and the SZV East, are the save states. Excuse me. But if you can save your allowance and get the better one, still a bargain, as it will play the entire Genesis collection, hopefully for many, many years, making the experience better the entire time. Many more years of even better happiness, to me, is worth the $30. But then, I'm rich. I'm not rich, but I am a higher roller when it comes to my gaming. But I look at my EverDrives as a money-saving proposition, not spending. Now, I have all the games for all my systems, and I don't have to spend anymore. Yeah, I have seen your game room, Dumaze. You certainly do ball when it comes to gaming. Like, for sure. No doubt about that. For me, though, I've also, like I mentioned earlier, I've owned a flash card in the past. I've owned a Game Boy flash card for quite some time. I don't think, to me, that replaces the Game Boy library. I don't know. You know what? I really got to do some thinking on this topic because, like I mentioned earlier, my reproduction cards for the Sega Genesis, they don't hold a save. And that's really, it really changes things. So I don't know what I'm gonna do. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not even worried about save states. I'm just talking about a regular old going to the checkpoint and saving kind of deal. And it doesn't seem to hold. So I don't know. Maybe you're right. But I have some more repros coming, and I'm loving those to death. And I don't think I feel the need to kill that. It's funny because like the Genesis repros are really attainable, and they're really like inexpensive. But I could see getting an EverDrive, one of the more expensive EverDrives. Like for example, to get a repro for the Nintendo 64 is like $20. It's like $20, more than that. So I could see paying $100 for a repro for the Nintendo 64. Not a repro, for an EverDrive. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. 5 games. 5 games and you're in EverDrive territory. So, thank you, by the way, Dumaze, for your insight when it comes to the EverDrives. You've been able to write in consistently and kind of clear that out for me, so I appreciate that. We've also got a comment from Death Adder who writes, I've been watching this show on Amazon called Mr. Robot. They mentioned Linux. Thought about you. Rubbed one out. Thank you, Death Adder, for this uncomfortable moment. I'll treasure it always. And that's about it. We are 1 hour, 6 minutes, and 5 seconds in. It's Saturday morning. I didn't get to finish the podcast last night because I took my family to see some fireworks, which was nice. It was a nice family Christmas event, which was super cool. We had a good time. So thank you for waiting, patrons. Thank you for waiting till Saturday to get the show. I appreciate it, and my family appreciates it as well. So whatever has brought you in your life, 1 hour and 6 minutes and 33 seconds in, I hope it's going well, and I hope you guys have a great Christmas season this year. You're listening to Tiger Claw Radio. I'll see you next Monday.